Dressed up as a
Represent.
I will come back. Sure, we'll do league, not be focused. Invitation.
Oh,
Yeah, I can show you my underwear. Please wait. Yeah.
Mask down.
By experience. Oh.
It being 7 o'clock, I'm going to call the October meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Thank you, commissioners, for showing up tonight. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming by, planning to give us your input. First thing on the agenda is minutes from the September 9th regular meeting. Do we have any discussion on them?
I move we approve the minutes.
Have a motion to approve?
Second.
And a second? All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Next, we'll have a public hearing on the comp plan amendment and rezone on West Theater Lane. Any commissioners have a potential conflict with this issue? Seeing none, I open the hearing. The Planning Commission is holding a hearing to consider a request to amend the city's comprehensive plan map from medium-density mobile home residential, R4, to commercial, C, with a corresponding change in zoning designation from multi-structure residential, R4, to outline commercial, C2, for properties located at 120, 150, and 220 West Theater Lane. The Planning Commission will consider the request and make a recommendation to the City Council based on the criteria established in Ordinance 157.226 of the Hermiston Code of Ordinances. The applicant is UK Properties. The applicable substantive criteria relied upon by the city in rendering the decision to amend the comprehensive plan map and zoning map are contained in Ordinance 157.226 of the Hermiston Code of Ordinances. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the criteria described above or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations which the person believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue by the close of the record at or following the hearing, in person or by letter, precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, or the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to LUBA or the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing pursuant to ORS 197.763, subparagraph 6, subparagraph 4B, or leaving the record open for additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763, subparagraph 6, subparagraph C. For this hearing, the process begins with the staff report, followed by testimony from the applicants and any other supporters of the application. This will be followed by opponents to the application. Finally, a rebuttal by the applicant will be allowed. Excuse me. The public hearing portion of the procedure will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will consider the information and testimony received, adopt findings of fact, and make a recommendation to the City Council on the comprehensive plan map and zoning map amendments. So first, I would ask Clint for a staff report, please.
Yes. Tonight, the Planning Commission is considering an application to amend the comprehensive plan map and zoning map for a 1.9 acre tract on the north side of West Theater Lane that is owned by UK Properties. It's currently in the city's MH residential comprehensive plan designation and R4 zoning designation. The applicant is proposing to amend that to be a C2 zoning designation and commercial comprehensive plan map designation. Right now, there are 7 existing parcels in this 1.9 acres that has 3 existing single-family dwellings and some accessory buildings like garages, sheds, that sort of thing as well on the area. There's no development plan on this lot that's being considered as part of the application, but the land will be marketed for commercial development. It's located in a transitional zone between uses right now. To the west, as you go along Theater Lane, it's developed with low-density single-family development in Desert Shadows and the upcoming Theater Park development, which just completed their infrastructure improvements. As you go farther out, there's also Skyline Ridge on Gear Road. And then as you go look at the south side of Theater Lane, it's developed commercially with a grocery store, a theater, secondhand store, a variety of commercial uses. And as you move east, there's a car dealer and a bank. So right now, this sits right at the transition of a commercial development and residential development. And it's also located on one of the city's minor collector streets, so it's an area that generates quite a bit of traffic. When you look at each of the existing lots as they sit, each one's relatively small, right? Some of them are as small as 5,000 square feet. They go up to about 1/3 of an acre. Each one by itself would be too small to accommodate any kind of commercial development, but as an aggregate of land, it's definitely at 1.9 acres, big enough to develop commercially. And if you have any questions about the types of uses that would be accommodated in our C2 zone, I certainly can answer questions on that. And when we're looking at potentially changing a zoning designation like this, we have to really look at our residential needs and our commercial needs. And right now, we have a need in our housing analysis for about another 3,000 housing units over the next 20 years. We have the capacity to build 11,000 housing units in our urban growth boundary. So we have much more residential land than we have a demonstrated need for. So removing this land from the residential inventory would not be detrimental to the city's ability to provide for our housing needs and would provide additional commercial land in an area that is very high trafficked and as is the demonstrated area where retail site locators generally are looking. They want to be between Bucking Center and town. So this is a prime location for commercial development. We did provide public notice of this to all property owners within 300 feet of the property by direct mail. We posted a sign on the property informing of the proposed change, as well as a publication of public hearing in the Hermiston Herald for 2 weeks ahead of time. Did not receive any objections as a result of those publications. Did receive some questions about, what is going on, but no actual testimony was submitted as a result. At this time, I would recommend that the property be rezoned and that the planning commission make that recommendation. And be happy to answer any questions.
Clint, the lot that is remaining, that long
Can you
skinny
turn on your
lot.
mic?
Oh, sorry.
I can't hear at all.
It's on. Is that? Oh, pressing the button.
The long skinny lot that's there, does that also have the designation of high-density housing and manufactured?
It is our work.
Okay. I couldn't access last night the county website to gauge the width of that. It's a pretty narrow lot.
I've talked with the landowner on that one many times. It is just wide enough. I think it is exactly 130 feet wide.
Okay.
Because we talked about doing, how would you develop that? And there is sufficient width to do a street and meet 80-foot lot house, if I remember. So theoretically, it still could develop. That one also would be not quite as good as a commercial use,
Right.
but it would be an option.
You're referring to tax lot 252, right?
Yes.
So, I have a question then, Tammy. So on tax lot 90, then, that would remain residential then, is that right?
That one is already commercial.
Oh, it is? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Just a quick question, Clint, on that same map with the nice colors, the dotted red line, that's city limits?
Yes.
Can I ask this, technical, it has not exactly to do with this, but that lot 90, why is that adjudged to West Theater, or does it actually?
I think it has not dedicated the same amount of width to the right-of-way for Theater Lane as all the other ones. Probably, that is one of those things that when that lot redevelops, it has a house on it too. And when that lot redevelops, that would be a condition of development, where they get that additional 50.
Do you know if that is owned also by the state?
It is.
Any other questions for Clint? Okay, I'd like to open this up to public testimony. What I would request that whoever would like to testify be recognized by the chair, and then go to the microphone and give your testimony, stating your name and address for the record. And then we would ask that, are there tissues, the wipes over there, Heather?
Yes.
Okay. That we ask that once you're done, make a quick clean of the podium, particularly if you take your mask off when you testify. And then, so is there anyone, is an applicant here to say something on this?
Well, I don't really have anything to say, but, no, we've had that for quite a while. There's been some interest.
That microphone is not on. You have to turn it on.
All right.
And if you could, please state your name and address.
John Usany, address is 110 Rosa Vista Drive, Yakima, Washington. And we've had that property for several years. How we got into this was, if you probably know John Walls, who's managed our rental property. And he convinced me that this needs to be residential for value. And I didn't know the process for this sort of thing, so he listed it in his office. It's under commercial property. And I didn't pay any money or anything. I just let him take care of it. Then he passes away, and the lady that took his place had some inquiries, and I had told her what Don told me is commercial. And she had some inquiries, and when she told him it was commercial and then investigated, it's not commercial, it's still residential. And there's a father and son, I think, that has several acres behind, it's vacant, who were also involved and wanted to do something. And so that prompted me to apply for this application to convert it to residential. I understand, I don't even know the people's name that had, they got about 7 or 8 acres behind. They've had inquiries from commercial people. I have no idea any names of anybody that's asked about it, but there's been interest on it. So when this lady took over for Don, she had some inquiries, told them it was commercial, found out it wasn't. They wanted to know how far in the process it was. Well, it wasn't. So they took back, they disappeared. I have no idea who was interested or anything. So, no, I think it's a natural with the acreage behind, could be developed, and we get commercial all around, so that's why we're doing this.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Houston?
Do you have anybody living on that property at the present?
Is there people living on it?
Yeah.
Yes, the 3 houses are.
And they're happy with it?
So, like I said, it does bring up the question, if it's changed to outline commercial, can you still have rental property, residential rental property there?
Yes, the way our commercial code is written, it says that where there are existing dwellings, they may be maintained, rebuilt, and expanded in accordance with our R3 residential standards. So you don't instantly create a non-conforming dwelling by changing the zone.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Houston. Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone who'd like to speak against this item? Commissioners, any further questions, or are we ready to close the hearing? Seeing none, I close the hearing. Now we need to consider the findings of fact as included in your staff report. Starting page 19.
I would move that we approve the findings of fact.
I have a motion to approve the findings as written. And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the findings as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now I would entertain a motion to recommend approval of the proposed comprehensive plan map amendment and rezone to the city council.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, motion passes. You are good to go, Mr. Houston. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the city council will be holding a public hearing on this on October 26th. That'll be the second item. At that point, the council will make a decision on where another based on our recommendation.
This one will be November 9th, actually.
Can you repeat that?
The council meeting is November 9th for this one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. November 9th.
Next, we'll have a public hearing on an annexation of a piece of property located at 315 East Theater Lane. Any commissioners have a conflict with this item? Seeing none, I'll open the hearing. The Planning Commission is holding another hearing to consider a request for annexation to the city of Hermiston. The Planning Commission will consider the request and make a recommendation based on the criteria established in Ordinance 150.05 of the Hermiston Code of Ordinances. The applicant wishes to annex approximately 0.50 acre tract of land located at 315 East Theater Lane. The applicant is Umberto and Melba Modelis. The applicable substantive criteria relied upon by the city in rendering the decision to annex the property are contained in Ordinance 157.05 of the Hermiston Code of Ordinances. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the criteria described above or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations which a person believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue by the close of the record or by following the hearing in person or by letter precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, or the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to LUBA or the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action or damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing pursuant to ORS 197.763, subparagraph 6, subparagraph B, or leaving the record open for additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197.763, subparagraph 6, subparagraph C. For this hearing, the process begins with a staff report, followed by testimony from the applicants and any other supporters of the application. This will be followed by opponents to the application. Finally, a rebuttal by the applicant will be allowed. The public hearing portion of the procedure will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will consider the information and testimony received, adopt findings of fact, and make a recommendation to the City Council on annexation. So now I'd like to request Clint for the staff report.
Tonight, the Planning Commission is holding a public hearing to consider annexation of a 0.5 acre tract that's located at 315 East Theater Lane. This property is located within the urban portion of our urban growth boundary has a comprehensive plan map designation of medium density residential, which corresponds to the city's R3 zoning designation. The applicant is requesting annexation to the city with the R3 zoning. The property is adjacent to city limits on two sides and is therefore eligible for annexation. Annexation is proposed in this case in order for the house to connect to city services. This is an existing dwelling that was built out of New County. It's consistent with all of the city's annexation proposals, or not proposals, criteria, I apologize. And I would recommend that the property be annexed to the city with the condition of approval that as a condition that the applicant signs a street improvement for East Theater Lane improvements in the future. Right now, this was not a standard street. It has no curb gutter, sidewalk, and insufficient paving. So this would bind the property to participate in any future LID that may be formed for improvements to East Theater Lane. Be happy to answer any questions on the proposal. Otherwise, that would conclude the staff report.
Commissioners, any questions for Clint?
Is that a well and septic in that
That's
particular area right now?
And water and sewer are both available in Theater Lane.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here to speak for this item? Anyone here wants to speak against this item? Okay. Nobody wants to talk? We ready to close the hearing? Hearing is closed. First, we need to consider, again, the findings of fact as included in your staff report, starting on page 30. Just page 33. Okay. Any additions, deletions?
Move that we accept the conditions
The findings?
and draft findings.
Can we do the findings and the condition in the same motion?
You can.
You want to include the condition in that motion?
Well, I'll just go with the draft findings. I move that we accept the draft findings.
Okay, we're just going with the findings. We have a motion to approve the findings as written. So I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There is one draft condition of approval.
I move we impose the draft condition in staff report.
We have a motion to approve the condition. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we need to recommend approval or disapproval of annexation to the city council. So moved. So moved for what? I'll give you a choice. Gotcha.
I move to recommend approval of the annexation to the city council.
Thank you. Have a motion to approve, recommend approval to the city council. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Two down. Going on to new business. We have a preliminary plat in front of us for a new subdivision located on corner, well, kind of sort of on the corner of East Highland and Southeast 9th Street. Kind of wraps around the church there. The staff report, please, Clint.
Tonight, the Planning Commission is considering a request from Tyler Brandt for a new single-family subdivision that's located on 6.61 acres of single-family residential land. This land is zoned R1. The proposed subdivision is located near the southeast corner of Southeast 9th Street in East Highland, not directly at the corner, but near it, and south of the existing Faith Presbyterian Church, which is located at 1005 Southeast 9th Street. This land is described as 4N28 14AA, tax lot 102. The proposed development consists of 28 single-family lots, all of which meet or exceed the minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet in the city's R1 zone. The Maxwell Canal abuts the southeast corner of the site and is protected by irrigation easement, which you will note in your testimony from the Hermiston Irrigation District, which came from Caravan Crossing. The overall development plan is divided into two phases. It's two cul-de-sac development, and phase one is the south cul-de-sac, which extends east-west from Southeast 9th Street and has 18 lots. And phase two would be the north-south cul-de-sac extending southward from East Highland Avenue and has 10 lots. The overall design of the subdivision is compliant with all of our R1 standards. However, there are a few things to discuss. One of the things is that there is a documented high water table on this site. Our comprehensive plan identifies this area as subject to development hazards due to the high water table. And the property owner commissioned a geotechnical study from GM Northern Consulting in 2014. The report is about 60 pages and not really, I didn't attach it to the staff report for you, but it is in the file if the planning commission wishes to review it, and it is part of the record. City engineers are that we contract with, Anderson Perry, have reviewed the groundwater report and the developer's proposal for addressing this groundwater issue. And the idea that they have put forth is to either, through the civil improvement construction phase, in phase one, as the hard pan layer is dug through there, that should help to alleviate the pipe water table by taking any canal seepage and putting it below the hard pan. And then for further disbursement into the sandy soils, that would be with phase one. If that were not to be a successful way of mitigating the groundwater, the developer is going to pursue piping of the Maxwell Canal south of the development. City engineers have reviewed the proposal and feel that it is acceptable with a few conditions of approval, which are in your staff report on page 49. One thing I will point to you is that in addition to the 10 conditions on page 49, you have a supplemental memo with 3 additional conditions that was put out today. And I apologize if these weren't in the original staff report. We had a flu shot clinic last Tuesday before the staff reports were supposed to go out on Wednesday, and I had a reaction to the flu shot. So not everything got into the report that was supposed to be there, so this came a little late. But the conditions briefly that are intended to mitigate the groundwater is that the applicant is responsible for addressing and mitigating groundwater within the development. That's condition 2. The city engineer will review and approve the plans for groundwater mitigation. Groundwater mitigation shall be monitored for 1 irrigation season after construction of the phase 1 improvements, and the city would withhold approval of phase 2's civil drawings until that irrigation season has completed, so that we are able to adequately assess the groundwater. And then the city engineer, in his memo that you have on page 55, also recommended an additional condition. And this is one I had put in the supplement. Said that the city shall reserve the right to require additional groundwater improvements should unforeseen conditions warrant, or if the proposed improvements do not resolve the groundwater issue. As far as other public improvements, East Highland Avenue, adjacent to this, is fully developed to city standards, has curb gutter sidewalk, no additional improvements are required. Southeast 9th Street requires infill paving and curb gutter sidewalk. And then within the development, each street would be paved with curb gutter sidewalk and bioswales to handle groundwater within the development. I would be happy to answer any other questions about the conditions of approval or about the development. The developer is also here tonight to answer any additional questions.
So, are there any potential, should we be requiring something different for water on the road surface of the ground soils if there's a known water issue?
Actually, swales work better than anything else. It is actually the only drainage option that we can have here. We can use infiltration trenches, and then what you do is you replace to a depth of about 3 feet with new soil, and then that will allow water to seep through. If we try to go with the conventional dry well approach, you have to have at least 10 feet of separation between the bottom of your dry well and the top of the water table, so that is not possible on this side.
So does anybody know the amount of water that might be oozing out of the canal in that particular area right there? Any measurements?
The study did kind of address that, and I would defer that to the applicant also.
So,
And everybody feels that these mitigation efforts are going to be sufficient?
We're confident that they will be sufficient, but the engineers are hedging and saying, I want that whole irrigation season to make sure that it really has addressed the issue.
Yeah, because there might be more than just Maxwell flowing down to there.
Exactly.
So I have a question. Will this improvement trigger any of the street improvements to the south of that?
No, no,
Okay, because we have several properties there that have signed an agreement, and so
it will not.
when will those ever be triggered, do you think?
When they actually fully develop and something actually gets built on, we'll worry about it.
Bill? I have a number of questions. So, the water has been found to come from the natural canal.
Yes.
Okay, and that's been, the study that you referred to, the 60 pages, that showed that the water issue was coming from the canal?
As near as it can be shown, groundwater can always be an issue that's hard to track, but they didn't identify any springs. So it is believed that it is.
Okay, so that's good. My concern is that what happens if we were to actually get high rainfall in the wintertime? So that would be a different source of water, and wondering what impact it would have. You know, I think it's kind of a general slope towards the to the south, and so there may be actually water coming in from elsewhere. So my concern comes to one season, or it's tied to one growing season, or one irrigation season. I'm wondering if that condition of number 13, is that forever? Or is that just refers back to the one season?
I was talking with the city engineer about that exact item today, whether or not this would be a blank check, open-ended thing, and I don't feel that that would be an appropriate thing to do. I mean, after 18 months or so, you've been through a rainy season, you've been through a ground thaw, you've been through the irrigation, you know, I wouldn't think that beyond 18 or 24 months.
Well, each year is a little bit different. I mean, it could be an event that would occur that would be out of the ordinary, that might happen once every 5 years or something like that. And so, my concern would be if there was an event that caused high groundwater, would that be covered by normal insurance of the homeowner? So in other words, I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing here in terms of making sure that we've adequately taken care of any landowner that would purchase a lot there.
And I do not know the answer on insurance. Sorry.
Is the irrigation district, are they gonna put any fencing along their canal back there?
I was actually a little surprised they didn't request that when they submitted their application, their comment letter, because usually they do request exactly that sort of thing, and they did not this time.
But going back to the water issue, several years ago, we had that there at that property that was shooting down into the neighborhood below. What was that from irrigation? I don't even remember what time of year that was.
Yeah, that was irrigation. And what they wanted doing was actually building a pipe which carries the water across Highland and down to the canal. That's further down.
So it says in here that if the note from City of Hermiston or whatever, it says that if the trench doesn't work to handle the water flow mitigation, that the owner will be, or developer will be on the hook basically to put in a pipe in the open section that their property borders. Well, if you look at the map, that's like 50 feet. So we're gonna have an open canal that runs and then hits a pipe for 50 feet and then goes back up the canal. So that's gonna be leaking the whole, if that canal truly is leaking, it's gonna be leaking the whole distance of it, not just that 50 feet that borders their property, and probably will not mitigate anything if we do that.
Yeah.
Not saying they need to be on the hook necessarily for all that, but I don't think that that's gonna do much of anything if it comes to it.
Yeah, the area that is to the west of what borders them would actually be flowing under another property and another house in order to get to them. But I think that the amount that would have to be piped would have to be determined through a study. Because you pretty much have to figure out where the leakage is. You you can't say, well, we're gonna do 50 feet here, and say that's gonna solve it, because groundwater, when it's flowing under the surface, yeah, you have to figure out where it is. You have to look at the seepage, you have to do the study, you have to tie the water, see where it's coming out.
They run water through that all year?
No.
I didn't think so.
It's not lined though, it's not concrete there. The A canal further south is, but that's not concrete, is it? It flows through them.
Clint, I'm sure this has been asked before, but I'm new, so I'm gonna ask it. Does the irrigation district have any responsibility to stop the seepage?
That is a question that has been debated over and over again.
I figured
over the
Do they
years.
acknowledge?
And then
Do they
tons
acknowledge?
tons of different communities have the same questions, because your reclamation folks.
Got it.
Question.
And it's hard to build your reclamation.
So Clint, I had a question. In your condition number 10, you reference an alleyway that is platted from 1917. Where does that alley, where is that located in relation to the development itself? Is it immediately east of the development, or is it
It
partially?
borders this development to the east.
So it would be-
It runs north-south from Highland all the way down to what is known as Monkman Avenue.
Yeah. So that alley lies entirely on the next property east, is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say it lies on the next property to the east. It's a public right-of-way. So it actually is
Okay, so.
land owned by the public that divides the property.
So I was just thinking, in a hypothetical, if the developer and the landowner to the east get that vacated, where does that land go?
It would revert 10 feet to each property.
Okay.
Each property would get an additional 10 feet.
Is that included in his preliminary plat?
Yes.
So potentially could add 10 feet. One road.
So a few happy landowners could get 10 extra feet. Okay, any more questions for Clint?
I guess I had a question, Clint. I get why, for financial reasons, it makes sense to do the year of monitoring after the houses are built in phase one, but, I mean, in a perfect world, wouldn't it make more sense to do your mitigation and then monitor it for a year, and then build your houses assuming everything's okay? I mean, what, if the mitigation doesn't work, if that's what you discover after phase one, what happens with the phase one houses at that point that are, I mean, do they all just get indoor swimming pools, or what's the?
They will have to be, they will be working with the developer. You have to remember, when we do subdivisions, we require a 1-year guarantee of an operation of improvements as well. So even though they may sell off those houses, yes, the developer warranties their house as well as they warranty the improvements in the subdivision itself. So even for that first year of operations, should something go wrong, the city can step in and say this needs to be fixed right now.
Any more questions?
I'm just kind of curious, what is the monitoring going to consist of over the next year? Is it going to be like complaints from homeowners, or somebody going to come out and dig a hole?
I'll defer that one to the developer and see what his plan is. Maybe a good time to ask for testimony at this point.
I do have one thing I want to bring up before we do. The whole cul-de-sac thing seems to fly in the face of 154.15G. Why did you decide to go that route and allow that when?
We've actually done it several times. Because it's not a shall. It's not a shall.
Well,
Requirement is a should.
it is a shall. The streets shall be interconnected and provide for continuous appropriate. So it is a shall. 400 feet is a should.
400 feet is a should.
Whether to allow this to be cul-de-sacs at all is a shall, and that's where I'm hanging out. when I read this should be a continuous street. And that's why I want to, I guess, explain why it's not. Other than the fact that it makes two more lots, which is, doesn't seem to satisfy the shall part of that.
I don't know that I have an answer for why we didn't. This was the plan that was submitted, so this is the plan we reviewed.
And Clint, I have one more question. In your report, it says that the hard panel layer, I assume that's a caliche layer. How deep is that caliche layer?
I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head. It was a report.
They didn't mention cliche. They did before.
Okay, so are we ready for some testimony? Mr. Brent?
Hello, I'm Tyler Brandt. I live at 439 East Bella Vista Avenue in Hermiston. I guess I wasn't really coming here prepared to give testimony, but I do know that there are a couple of questions that I can help answer a little bit. As far as the caliche layer, that varies throughout the property, but basically it's an undulation that runs, south to north, downhill, and it just kind of rolls. And Ben, you had a question about the 50 feet of pipe back there where it's open currently. So a portion of the property, I spoke with church leadership, they already have a curtain drain system installed that goes behind their property. And if you look at the plat map, you can kind of see how that moisture runs on the property now. And basically what they did was they put a curtain drain, and I guess it's on my property, right up against the south border. And it drains into a pipe that runs down 9th Street and down into the corner on Highland and Southeast 9th. But anyway, so that's why you don't see water that originates from that portion of the property. What you would see is stuff that's a little bit east of that that looks like it's leaking from Maxwell. So if during the improvements, it's sort of our plan A for mitigating that shallow groundwater, if that doesn't work, then we would pipe, I'm guessing it's roughly 150 feet. We wouldn't just pipe the 50 feet or so that's on our land.
Okay.
So that's that plan. And then for somebody else had a question about monitoring during the irrigation season, and I really don't have a concrete plan except that if there were people to complain about a new water issue down below our property, I think from a financial perspective, it makes sense just to go ahead and pipe the canal and not even do a study to figure out if it's originating, if it was caused by improvements on our property. I think it just makes sense to go ahead and pipe it and deal with it that way. So, I don't know if anybody else.
For clarification, so when you talk about piping, so I'm looking at the aerial photo, I'm not sure what's the street here by the Presbyterian going by the Mormon Church. What street is that?
Southeast 9th Street.
9th. So would you go from, you mentioned there's already something been done, but would you go from 9th Street all the way to the end of your property then on the Maxwell Canal? Pipe that?
I don't believe we would have to pipe that far. And the reason is because there's currently a curtain drain that runs across, I believe it's the full width of the church property, except that they moved it from their back property line to my back property line. So this was before I owned the property, but according to church leadership, that's how their system.
That perf pipe runs the complete length of your south boundary.
No, it only the perf pipe is only, from my understanding, approximately the width of the church's property.
And I was thinking they put in the whole length.
I'm not sure, I have to double check.
Do you know whether or not there's a water issue on the west end of your property versus the east end? In other words, because of the work that the person, that one property has already done, do you know whether or not that's had any impact on water to the north of that property?
Yeah, from my understanding, when the church built up their pad, it may have sort of diverted some of that water into what would be the north part of my property. Yeah.
So it has had an impact then?
Well, that's what I've been told, I'm not sure.
So, I guess, can you address the street thing for me? I've got to say, I'm not against the development at all. I just don't think this meets the requirements of code.
Well, I was unaware of anything that would have prevented that design from working, so that's the way I did it because that's the way it makes the most sense for me. If there's, I don't know, I don't have a good answer. I just did it because I felt that was best for me, and I thought that it met all of the city's specifications.
If the planning commission's view was that the two cul-de-sacs weren't the way to go, I mean, is it still a feasible thing for you to do if it's a street through there?
I'd have to go back and look, I'm not sure. It's certainly more expensive, and there's certainly less revenue that way. You have both more expenses and less revenue, so I'd have to look.
So off to a different topic, is it your intent, if this is approved, to have a single builder build all the houses? It is, okay?
That's correct.
There's no daylight basements in that
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
place. Daylight basements.
Not my department, I'm not sure.
So the one property, it's lot 11 in the far southeast corner. I trust you penciled it out, and there's plenty of room after you've taken into consideration all of the easements from the irrigation district that chop off quite a chunk of that corner.
Yes.
Any more questions for Mr. Brown? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak for this proposal? Vernon?
Vernon Weber. I live on Southeast 10th Street, 1100. And I'm not really speaking for or against. My property adjoins this property. We used to call it the church property. We sold that property to the Presbyterian Diocese in 1974. But on piping the Maxwell ditch, I wanted to do that to keep people off of my right-of-way, or the irrigation right-of-way, but my property. And I was told by a previous irrigation manager that the only way that could be done was a section at a time. Well, they have bent the rules in different places, but if you were to pipe that full area between 9th Street and 10th Street, the two property owners that own most of that is Dean Fialka and myself. So I don't know, I think the irrigation district needs to make a commitment as to what they will and won't allow, and what it will cost. And whether it needs to be fenced or not. And that's really all I have to say. say about it. It's all gonna be houses someday, and you know, I would hate to see anybody have water problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Mr. Weber?
I would be
Yes,
curious.
Mr. Brandt, on your conversations with the irrigation district regarding the piping.
To be sure, I haven't talked with the irrigation district about piping yet. So that's something that I have to do. I'm just going off of my contractor's experience with that kind of situation. That they're usually pretty amenable to it because we would basically pay for the materials and they tend to pay for the construction of those things. So it's my understanding that they are in favor of such improvements. But you know, I haven't had a conversation with them yet.
Anyone else would like to speak for this proposal? Anybody like to speak against it? Okay, commissioners. We have a preliminary plat. We need to, findings of fact are starting on page 46. Conditions of approval on 49 and on the supplemental sheet that we received tonight. What are your thoughts?
My only concern is the 1 year of the requirement by the builder to assess whether or not the water has been taken care of or not. I'd be happy with 2 years.
I have the same concern, but I guess I also feel a little bit like maybe I'm not confident we're at the right spot to make a decision tonight. There are a couple of things I think that were brought up that we don't know the answers to that I would like to know the answer to. One is the street issue that has been raised. One is what the irrigation district says about piping and how far and what's available and whose responsibility is it and all of those things. Those seem like they'd be pertinent to know before we make a final decision. So I mean, if it were me, I would probably defer it until next month and have the applicant come back and give us some more information. But that's my opinion.
I guess without, I don't know, either addressing the street thing or seeking a variance on it, I can't approve it as just flat, as or vote for it as drawn.
I'm sorry,
Today.
I didn't understand.
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
I could not vote in favor of this plat as drawn today without addressing the street thing, or either through, I don't know, a variance or drawing it as the interconnected roads like it's called for.
I haven't looked at the code, I guess, but I mean, my understanding of how you explained it is if it is more than 400 feet, not a cul-de-sac, is that right?
Well, no.
Or,
Sorry. I'm going to nerd out here a little bit. So the 15415 G talks about the interconnectedness of the streets and, you know, the goal of having things so you can meander through neighborhoods and not be in continuous little dead ends. Anyway, so it's a shall provision that they will be, but for, you know, if one of the following things happen, things like physical or topographical, constraints, et cetera, which really don't seem to apply in this case. Or there's some other things, like if they did so where cul-de-sacs are planned, multi-use paths connecting the end of the cul-de-sacs with each other, so you can still get through by bike or by walking, that sort of thing can make it so it would fit the code. But as it stands right now, the plan doesn't do either of those things.
In our code, basically, it says that cul-de-sac streets shall be allowed only when one or more of the following conditions exist. That's where it becomes imperative upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with one of these conditions, I think is what Mr. Doherty was saying. So are there physical or topographic conditions that make it impractical to connect streets? Are there buildings that, or other existing development, or wetlands, or anything like that? Or does it violate any easements or leases? Basically those types of things. We allow for cul-de-sacs when there's evidence in the record of a reason to allow it. What you're asking is, what was that?
If there's a good justification, or if there was connectivity through the multi-use path, they have a release valve in there for doing cul-de-sacs. But as it stands, it doesn't have justification in the record or release valve.
So these two streets wouldn't necessarily have to be connected, but the south one, the one that would be in phase one, the long one, is 431 feet. That one could just dead end at the end of their property on the west side or on the east side, sorry, be connected to a future development.
See, that is, I would have a hard time saying that that would be what the city would want long-term, having it dead end at the west. Having it take a 90 and curve up to Island, yeah, I wouldn't see an issue with that. But going through to the east, no, just because of the canal and all of there are actually topographic areas that make it practical to keep going further to the east, but not impractical to go to the north.
Yeah, that street would be close running to the canal, it's 10th Street. So you're saying if we go ahead and approve the streets as on this plat, we're setting a precedence of allowing cul-de-sacs without justification?
This is not a new precedent that we're doing, so I hadn't really taken that into account because we have done a lot of cul-de-sac development.
If that's the case, why do we have a code that forbids it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And I'd say to address that, I don't think that the code absolutely does forbid it, as long as there's some multi-use paths like that connects the cul-de-sac dead-end portions. So there's some connectivity, so it still meets our overall goals of flow.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand is what's bad about a cul-de-sac. And you mentioned you don't run into dead-end neighborhoods as often. But if we have allowed that multiple times, I'm just wondering what that intent was when the code was written. So now I understand.
I have some history with this property. I've actually read the report. I didn't look in my computer. I may actually have a copy of it. My concern in all of this, because I think it would be wonderful development. We absolutely have to have houses. So great location, great need. My concern and my history with this was the irrigation district, the role that they were willing to play, and mind you, that's been, what, 2014, so that's been years ago. But at the time, there was a substantial issue there. And I do believe that we need some more clarification with regards to their input, their part in all of this. I think that's a really vital piece of information that would help, I think, many of us get on board.
Now, we do have a letter from the irrigation district talking about this.
Really address what's the mitigation of the canal, though.
And since we're back on water, as I read this, so they do some mitigation before it starts, and they wait one growing season, one irrigation season, and if there's an issue, they do something else, but there's no, as I read this, another year to let it go through to make sure that the second mitigation is taking care of the issue. So again, I just don't think it's, just not where I need to be to ensure that we've done our jobs well enough to ensure that the property doesn't have a water issue somewhere down the road after we approve this.
Well, isn't that what supplement number 13 says?
No, so I already asked Clint about that, and it was that 1 year only. So if you.
Well, he said he didn't think it would be right to leave it open-ended, but as it's written, it's open-ended and doesn't have any limitation.
If there's no time frame on 13, I don't have an issue then.
Right.
As a practical matter, I mean, granted, the grant's been around for a long time, but there's no guarantee that a developer's gonna be around, and you get a guarantee from a developer and they're gone 5 years from now or 2 years from now. It's not unheard of, especially in recession, for them to divest themselves of profits or projects, and then you have 12 houses built along a water problem. And so I don't know that you can, how far in the future it's even practicable to say, that this is going to be a potential yoke around your neck for, so long to the developer. I think the developer needs to have some certainty of, at some point, I've done my duty, I did what I could.
I agree. I just don't think that 1 year is sufficient, that's all.
So Clint, this addendum or whatever, the page 56 that was added, I'm guessing this is from you or from the city? From the applicant. So, I mean, this is just, looks like a back of the napkin type of a meeting, talking about what could possibly be done. Is there a more engineering and scientific type of study that could be done where it was,
That's
do
part
this,
of
and
the
there will be no
design
problem?
process as you go forward. That, yes, that basically is the next step beyond this.
And is that required?
That's required before you turn dirt.
Okay, Commissioner Woody. What's the consensus here on the preliminary plat?
For myself, I would move to table this to next month's meeting and let the applicant come back with some more information from the irrigation district about piping the canal if that turns out to be necessary. Some findings maybe about the road issue, if he thinks there are findings that support the two cul-de-sacs, letting us know what those are. So I guess that would be my motion.
So you're making a motion?
And I am making that motion.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'd also like, I don't know if we do end up doing that, if we come back and talk about it next month. Kind of what Phil was talking about, having some kind of ongoing, or some way of monitoring this more than just that 1 year review, whether it's through that 13th condition or
Anyway, that'd be my motion to table the next month.
Okay, we have a motion to table the preliminary plat until next month.
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Next up on the agenda is the final plat. At 826 West Locust Avenue. Clint, staff report, please.
Yeah, this is a final plat that was submitted on behalf of Kelly Nobles for property located at 826 West Locust. It's a 33,000 square foot property. The planning commission approved the preliminary plat back in September of 2019. It creates 3 parcels, 2 on Hermiston Avenue and 1 on Locust. The final plat is prepared in accordance with all of the conditions of approval from the preliminary plat back when. And it's important to note that the land dedication in condition number 4 has been satisfied on this plat. And I think that's all I have.
Any questions for Clint? Mr. Nobles, would you like to say anything on this?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Nobles, 1050 Stevens, Umatilla, Oregon. This plat and the next one on the agenda are both in the same neighborhood. A gentleman by the name of Griffin had that whole several blocks several decades ago and kind of pieced it out and sold it. Basically, all the houses in that neighborhood now are on their own lots, and I kind of ended up with the last 2 large parcels that have 7 houses, 3 on one and 4 on the other. And so I'm doing 2 things. I'm just trying to clean it up. Probably going to cost me more taxes, paying 7 lots instead of, or 6 lots instead of 2. But also, I have 2 tenants that have talked to me about a lease option to buy, and it's hard to do that when their house is on a lot with 4 houses on it. So I just kind of thought this is the time to bring it to you and see if you agree that dividing, basically it's 1 house on each lot, and straight ahead of time.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Nobles? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, we have findings of fact starting on page 59 with 4 conditions of approval. I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move we approve the findings of fact and approve the final plat subject to the draft conditions.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next up is final plat for 235 Southwest 8th Place. Again, Clint, staff report, please.
This is another final plat following up on a preliminary plat from the same meeting back in September of 2019. There are 3 houses on 1 lot that are, and this partition puts each house onto its own lot. The planning commission approved this preliminary plat, subject to the condition that 10 feet would be dedicated to Southwest 8th Place, and that is reflected on the plat as required by the city, and I would recommend approval of this plat.
Thank you. Any questions for Clint? Any further comments?
Same story across the street.
Okay. Same day, same story. So, findings of fact start on page 66 with 3 conditions. Any discussion? I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the final plat subject to the draft condition.
A motion for approval, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Okay, now we have a facade grant for the property at 145 Southwest 4th Street. Clint, maybe a report, please?
Yeah, real briefly, the planning commission is scoring a facade grant application tonight for a property located at 145 Southwest 4th Street. It's currently a residence, and the applicant is hoping to convert this into a commercial structure, replacing the existing siding and windows. The project budget is $36,000, and the project is eligible for a match of up to $10,000. Now, one thing I want to make sure I get in front of the planning commission is that facade grants are only eligible for commercial development. So at the time this is a residence, I would recommend that any reimbursement under the grant be withheld until a commercial tenant occupies the building. I think it's a great use. I think that this is exactly what the facade grants were intended for, is to convert the existing residences in our urban renewal area to commercial use. It's something I think we really didn't anticipate, though, is that someone would actually do it. So I just would like to say that we should withhold reimbursement of any facade grant until a commercial tenant does take place, so that we know it's going for the right use, or it's intended use.
So Clint, I saw your suggestion. So would that mean if they rented it out for commercial park for 3 months, or would it be 6 months, or would there be a minimum length of time?
Once the property falls out of residential use, it can't go back. So,
Okay.
So I had a question, and it's just a technical question, regarding the footings on, let's see, 9 and 10 on their bid, 4 footings and frame and walls for a bathroom, installed or roofing for this addition. Is that, I guess I wasn't thinking of something along those lines with a facade grant.
you know, we talked about that internally a little bit, and we actually were thinking of that in terms of a facade grant, at least how Mark and I originally envisioned it, is that if somebody were building a building from the ground up, it's eligible for up to $10,000 of reimbursement. Now, what that goes to, it's all part of the commercial rebuilding, so we felt that it still met the intent. If that
It
makes
was
sense.
focusing, sorry, on the literal facade grant.
That my only thought would be if the planning commission is uncomfortable with something like that, then we would just reduce it.
It's a clarification, but that was where my mind was at. It's all as well.
The sod grants are 50% of the 10,000, correct? And that max is 50% of the 10,000.
There is a process to go over 10,000 for incredibly large projects, but otherwise.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at this, the bid is for 29, the 4 footings is for 8,900. So even if you back that out, you're still at 20,000. So,
Well, that doesn't include the windows and such, so, yeah.
Any other questions, Clint?
Just maybe a comment, in case you wonder what the picture was on the handout, it doesn't really say that that's where it's reference to the property already remodeled, where Kinsey Malloy office is. I mean, I don't know that you'd know that unless you had been there, but it looks much better than, it looks very nicely done, anyway.
Yeah, the applicant wanted to include some photos of properties that he had remodeled in town, so that the planning commission could have a feel for.
Yeah, so I presume those are before and after.
The one that you talked about in Kinsey Malloy's office is within the urban renewal district, and the one on the very last page, it is a residence over on Birch Drive. But it's not a commercial property.
Do we have someone here on this proposal?
My name is Dustin Kelly. I've been living in Hermiston since 2013. I originally came out here. I was recruited to work for Union Pacific Railroad. I work for Lamb West in Hermiston right now. I'm the maintenance manager there. I've been in addition to working as an engineer and a maintenance manager, I'm also an avid real estate investor. I've got a number of residential properties in Portland, and what I've been doing is selling property in Portland and buying property in Hermiston. So I bought a home at 1 Southwest Birch Drive in December of 2013, and then I bought the property at 210 Southwest 3rd Street in very early 2018. I didn't know about the facade rent, but I like the fact that this is a commercial area that has residential houses. I like the fact that I can take a residential house and turn it into a small business. So I did that, and I was actually still working on the property, converting it into a commercial property on 3rd Street when Kenzie Malloy actually approached me and asked me if she could rent a place. So I had to spend a couple of weeks finishing up, getting family ready for her. So I think I've got a good track record of taking a residential property in a commercial area and actually making it into a space for a small business. I purchased the property on 145 Southwest 4th Street with the same intention. So I pretty much torn it down as far as I possibly can, and now it's ready to be, restored and to make it as historically accurate as possible. And then if anybody's been in Kenzie Malloy's place, I made it a point to keep it historically accurate. I restored the original hardwood floors and kept it as original as possible. So basically what I'm asking for, and I have absolutely no problem waiting for a reimbursement until I get a commercial tenant. The place is in really, really bad condition right now. If I was a business, I wouldn't rent it, frankly. But it needs a lot of work. It's really tough to get contractors right now. It's tough to get a bid. A gentleman I work with, C&C Construction in Hermiston, they put the roof on my house on Birch Drive. They did the roof on 3rd Street. I can't get a bid out of these guys. Right? So I've only been able to get one bid, and that's from Corey Little. And then, Mr. Insulation, I was able to get a bid for windows from them. So, really what I'm asking for is I plan on doing roof, siding, and windows, and the additional footing is for the back of the house because the house is 100 years old, and originally there was no bathroom. It was 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen, and that's all there was. And at some point they did a kick out on the back of the house, and for some reason they didn't make this kick out the entire width of the house. So as part of what I plan to do, I just wanted to reclaim 5 feet that just basically isn't anything at all right now. Just get some additional square footage in the house. So, I spend a lot of time at work. Investing in real estate is something I do on the side, and commercial real estate is much easier to manage than residential real estate. So, the bottom line is this place is going to become a space for a small business. In addition to the $36,000 that I have budgeted for the exterior, I'm probably going to have to spend another $27,000 roughly on concrete, electrical, HVAC, and landscaping. But to me, it's a good investment. I like Hermiston. I like living here. I think this is kind of a cool area. I appreciate you considering my application.
Is the building currently occupied, or is it?
No, it's unoccupied, and it's unoccupiable. The gas has been disconnected, the water hasn't been. I'm paying the water bill, I'm paying the trash bill, but no, it's not.
So you're just waiting for a commercial business to come along?
So, honestly, I probably would have started sooner on renovation, but, you know, the only contractor that I actually could get to give me a bid was Corey Little, and he's not available until the end of this month. So the plan is to rehab it and then advertise it as a commercial property. You know, and I own it outright, I pay cash for it. So to me, this is an investment. You know, it's an investment property.
That sounds like a good project. Any questions? Mr. Kelly?
You said, I think kind of in passing, that the house is 100 years old. Is it really that old, or is that just kind of a?
Oh, it's 100 years old. Yeah, it's an old house. It's got original hardwood floors. It's lath and plaster. It's got sawdust in the attic. But it's got good bones. It's got a lot of potential.
How many square feet is it, and how many square feet will it be when you've done the kick-out?
So it's a little bit under 700 square feet, and probably once I extend the kick out, it'll probably be 750 square feet. It's very, very small addition. It's claiming space that to me is unclaimed in my state.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
So you're gonna have to help us here. We don't do this often enough for me to remember.
Yeah. Well, we have the, what we score on is based on the criteria of how well it's going to meet the 6 goals of the facade grant themselves, based on the applicant's narrative and design plans. That are they consistent with the types of architectural features found in the existing historical buildings in the district? Does it contain features designed to contribute to enhanced aesthetics? Do they contribute to the enhancement of the commercial use and the downtown as a whole? Are they compatible with the overall downtown character? Are they designed to contribute to the long-term health of the district? And will they provide a good return on investment for us? In this one, I think you score exceptionally high with return on investment and long-term health of the district by converting residents to commercial. They tax higher, and that is the stated goal of the urban renewal district, is to help develop the downtown commercial core and help transition some of these older residences into commercial use. And as you said, it's a 100-year-old house, so it's definitely going to be consistent architecturally with a lot of the other existing buildings, if not necessarily the actual historic buildings that are downtown, like the Rollers building.
Is there much else? I mean, I'm sure there are a few others in that area, and then like north of Main Street too, where there that many homes that are that age around. I'm trying to think. I don't know of any that are in commercial.
Look, as you head down, well, all of this area, because the urban renewal district runs from Orchard up to Hermiston Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of residences there on 5th and 3rd and 4th that are all roughly this age. And then when you think about Southeast 4th Street, between Highland and Main Street, is another place where there's a lot of those that are residences that we would like to transition to commercial. A lot of the craftsmen style.
East side?
Yeah, that last bit. All of that area, Quince, Pine, everything between basically 395 and 4th Street is all commercially zoned as part of the urban renewal district. It is most of the houses.
So we scored 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, or most bestest. Okay, Commissioner, you have a score sheet with your name on it, so time for your test.
Seems like a year and a half ago, we were wondering if we were going to run out of money
because with the COVID restrictions, a lot of commercial stuff has really slowed down, but a lot of existing businesses have taken the time to say, well, I'm not doing anything else, I'm gonna remodel. So it's been 6 of one, half dozen of another, and although we try to keep the word out about the facade grants, a lot of times people just say they just don't know about them, and I don't know how much more we can publicize it. We try to do mailings every year to all the businesses, and try to talk about it whenever we can, in the chamber, and on radio or whatever, and keep the word out. We've even physically taken the flyers to each business that has done that at least once.
Ben, I know that the lack of contractors is looking down. The guy that did La Laguna came to us, he was waiting about 8 months to get all the bidding in, let alone prove it's done, so.
Yeah, it's tough doing anything done unless you have your own crew. After you're done scoring, you can pass them down to Heather. You're on my left. Now, while Heather is doing that, I see we have no unfinished business this month. So once we get done with this, we'll be down to final comments and
Well, I have a few. I want to reiterate that we have moved the November meeting to November 18th due to Veterans Day. Make sure everybody remembers that from our last meeting. So if you show up on November 11th and there's nobody here, that's on you at that point.
I'm sorry, so November 18th? Okay.
I wanted to talk about the housing needs analysis. I sent out an email late last week. How would you prefer doing it? An extra long meeting with the consultant or doing a second meeting? And the general consensus of the planning commission was to do 2 meetings. And instead, and I think that's the right choice. And we are tentatively scheduling the first work session for the week of November 30th. So the Wednesday of that week would be December 2nd. So you'll probably have a December 2nd planning commission meeting and a December.
Okay, I'm sorry, say that again, Clint.
We're tentatively scheduled with our consultant for the first work session on our housing needs analysis for the week of November 30th.
Okay.
And so that Wednesday would be December 2nd.
Second, okay.
So average 53 points for a 50% match.
And then my third question ties right back into facade grants. We pretty much always match at 50%. Would the planning commission be interested in recommending to the council that we just change the policy to 50% match instead of going through a scoring process? Tammy's saying no.
So what are you proposing, that we just vote on whether we can do the 50% or not?
Basically, if you apply for it, you would get a 50% match. Up to $10,000.
I think I'm kind of with Tammy. sure we're quite ready for that.
Well, we've just had several applications over the years, and prior to even, before it came to planning commission to oversee, we just had some applications that it just wasn't appropriate to do a 50% match. So I would hate to bind our hands and say we have to. I think it's important that we have some leeway one way or another.
Because I think there can be a very high variability with quality of the proposed.
There absolutely can. There's no question.
Okay, so Heather says it qualifies for 50%, is that correct?
Yes, it averages 53 points, so.
Okay.
Good job.
So we'll put the council will make their, when they figure out the word at the next meeting. We'll have that on the agenda.
So do we need to make a motion to send that up to the council? Or
No, you're just reporting out this course.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we need to do anything about the, not dispersing until because that's not a normal thing, it could be kind of conditioned, or do you just handle that and don't have to do anything? As far as the condition of it becoming a commercial, getting a commercial tenant, do we have to do anything along those lines? Do we have to, or is that all you?
What I'll do when I take the story of the plan to the city council, I'll put that in there, that's how we're recommending doing it 3 years.
Okay.
You guys are really just scoring.
I think we were just diminished.
But they don't know the questions.
What was that again that you said was going in, where the B&B was?
Barnett Borough is moving down there, so they're building a 20,000 square foot down.
It's been characterized as twice the size of the current building. Barnett Borough.
That L-shaped across the road.
Yeah.
So happy to see that land develop.
They're really moving on it.
So what's happening on Victor Bios between,
That's the mobile home park.
so is that a water line that they are putting in on the side there, the shoulder?
They are on the shoulder?
The shoulder of the street that's torn up.
That's probably just, they have to rebuild the street center line and then we could get a sidewalk, so that's probably what it is. The water is already there, they don't need to build it, and the sewer line is gonna be coming in off the north end at Jennings, so any work that's going on in that is gonna be.
You don't have anything else, Clint?
Those are my 3 things.
Anybody have anything for the good of the order? Okay, since you've entrusted me with the microphone, I've got a few comments. I guess reading in the paper lately, I've been a little disappointed some of the comments made with regards to what the planning commission did in July and the homeless issue in the zoning ordinance. I thought, it was a very difficult decision we came to. We spent a lot of time, and I thought we made a reasonable decision, and it sounded like almost, to me personally, that they were laying the blame for Stepping Stones not being able to proceed with their project at the feet of the planning commission, essentially throwing us under the bus. But that's only part of the story, is the problem. And I've had the opportunity to talk to the chair of the board for Eastern Oregon Missions, and come to find out, at the time that we were deliberating in July, Stepping Stones did not have an agreement to use that property with the Eastern Oregon Mission. We were in talks with them, but they had not come to an agreement yet. I was led to believe that they did have an agreement. And then subsequently to our approval of the zoning changed. Eastern Oregon Mission, the Board of Eastern Oregon Mission went into talks to sell that property to Mr. Simeotti and Mr. Lambert. So essentially, no matter what we did, Sussex Council not going to have to use that property anyway. But I want to thank the commission for the time that you put in, because we put in a lot of time on this and the deliberations, and I think we made a pretty decent decision.
So now that you brought it up, now that you brought it up, I just, I was reminded by the mayor, and the mayor actually threw us under the bus a little bit too, but in all reality is, city council could have overruled us and took out the provision of 1,000 feet from the park. So ultimately, I think it was their decision to leave it as it was from our recommendation. So nevertheless, I got after him about it, and we both laughed about it.
And that's true, and there was it seemed like a fair amount of urgency put on this issue by the city council. And I think it was good for us to take our time to thoroughly look at the issue and talk about it. Anyway, thank you, I'm done. We are adjourned.